Welcome back to another reading and correcting of Bottom Rung with me, Kindar, the Tiger, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. Okay, Chapter 8. Tibs, an adventurer called from the doorway of to the mess hall. Tibs had just sat down with his bowl of slop after morning training and a walk around the town. Wooden buildings were. One of them was going to be very large. Waited in case someone else would answer, then stood and bowl at the table. I'm Tibbs. The man was thin, with curled proper hair and an unstrung bow to his back. His armor was leather with colored wood bands over the arms. Ha! Ha! Interesting. I never mentioned. The man was thin, with curled copper hair, vivid green eyes, and an unstrung bow to his back. His armor was leather with colored wooden band over the arms. Do you know an archer named Ariana? Yes. He answered cautiously. What happened to her? If she died in a... They tell him. He hadn't seen her today. They ate at least one meal together. You need to find her and go to the dungeon. You're going in 2 hours. He turned and left. Tibbs stared at his back. How the man expected him to know where Ariana was. He ran to for the archery range. Not that she had any reason to be there. Training was only in the morning, but the field was accessible all day. Only the sorcerers were more serious about their trainings than archers. The range was still crowded, but he managed to find her. We're up, told her. Together? She unstrung the bow and walked to the adventurer said to find you and because we're up. Sure if they consider us to be left a dungeon together. But grumbled, added her. It means Dawn's going to be there. If he's still alive. He is, Tib said dejectedly. He'd seen the sorcerer in the mess hall and walking around the town, always with a handful of hangers on. Dawn wasn't there, but better. This time, their team consisted of another archer, too fat to be in, and a fighter. Have you all gone through before? The fighter asked. She adjusted her heavy shirt again as they walked through the tunnel leading to the. She had the largest chest, and the shirts they were provided with had been made for someone like her. It's my first time, the sorceress said. Unlike many first timers, she looked determined rather than. How far did the rest of you manage? Second room, Tibbs and Ariana answered together. I made it to the third room, the archer said, and Tibbs looked. Did he even? Fighter nodded, giving her up on her shirt. Here's how we're doing this. The light from the first room was becoming visible, and the rogue is going in first and alone. Your job is to check every stone tile and find us a safe path through. When we cross the room, we step exactly where he tells us. I don't want that room to be responsible for any death. Got that? Why don't you just look for the symbol that marks the trigger tiles? Ask, and receive incredulous looks from all except Ariana. He looked at them, baffled. He couldn't be the only one who knew. Ariana had told another. Everyone had to know by now. Explain? By the time he tried to work out how to explain it, they'd reached the room. Instead, he gave it a quick look over and stepped in, ignoring the gasp until he was 4 steps away from them and turned. Ariana looked amused while the others stared at him. He crouched and pointed to a tile halfway between them. The triggers all have that sort of wavy circle on them. Once they were paying attention to it, he indicated tiles to the left, and the were off. You have to pay attention because the other scratches on the tile sometimes sort of obscure them, but you don't need me to point them out. The sorceress leveled a calculating gaze. Yes, sorceress leveled a calculating gaze on it. What he's saying is that we don't need him anymore, right? None of that. Spider said, looking. What? He's a rogue. Sorceress indicated the floor. That's the only thing they're good for. And that in pocket. Do you really want one of them around when the coppers start dropping? The father looked at the sword. We have to hand them over. What does it matter if they are in my pocket or his until then? She looked at the floor again, then Rogue. Go ahead in the audience. Tibs. Tibs, I'd recommend not volunteering too much information in the future. I appreciate you telling us, but our reaction is more typical than I'd like to think. Other Archer chuckled. Well, now I know why Flynn was all missed how he knew, but don't worry, I'm not prejudiced like Miss Magic over there. Not prejudice, the sorceress spat. It's survival, plain and simple. We're here to feed the dungeon. Since he's done his part, I figure our chances are better if we feed him on to it now. That's not how it works. The second room wasn't easier or tougher when there were less of us there. I don't think the dungeon is smart enough to adjust to how many people in the room. Just thank Tibbs for telling you how to cross the room and move on. At least now, if your next rogue isn't good enough, you won't have to be paying for it. She started across the room and followed her. On the other side, Tibbs paused as he noticed something. But she grabbed his arm and pulled him. Come on, I have an idea how the next room works. The other room hadn't changed, and Tibbs shuddered at the memory of his. If he could think of a way to avoid having to step in there, he'd be a lot happier. Okay, I noticed something on my last run, Arena said. Trying to run through it, the rats bunch up and trip you. Butter said, we tried that on my last run. Yes, but if you stand still among the boulders, the rats will climb on top of them to jump on you. For some reason, they seem to prefer the neck over any other part of the body. Butter said, studying the room. They open your jugular, there's nothing you can do to survive unless you have a cleric with you. If stared at a second, she said, what is the silence? I'm here for a reason, like the rest of you, said as a question. Sure, the archer said. My reasons don't involve knowing a neck wound is that dangerous. He shuddered a little. Why are you here? And I asked. I hunted on the king's land. The men blushed. I kinda shot a man? How do you kinda shoot someone? The sorceress asked. The arrow wasn't supposed to hit anyone. Love letter to my destined, but her father was watching over her by the in the dark. I didn't see him there. There are easier ways to tell a girl you want to better her, Ryder said. Like that, Archer said, offended. I love her. She's my destined. We're going to be happy. We're going to be together and happy. After you shot our father? Archer looked at the floor. Didn't kill him, or what about you? The fighter asked him. Thief, replied with venom. Why do you think he's here? We get on with this? Tibs shrugged at the father's raised eyebrow. It wasn't like he ever lied about what he was. Shifted her focus to Ariana. So, you want me to just stand in the middle of the boulders while you pick up the rats? It's easier than having to find them while they scurry around your feet. If you stand with your back against that, that's only one side. That's one side they can't jump on you. But if you miss one, then you hack it. Just saying, this simplifies how we get through the room. If anyone has a better idea, we can do that instead. The problem I have with the idea, that going back to study, is that I have to trust you for this. We already had one vocal about sacrificing one of us to make her life easier, but stopping her from blasting crisp. I don't have an element, sorcerer said, so I can't burn you. All I can do right now is sting you with light. Going for water. Guess you're interested. We're not. Archer. Ariana looked at Tibbs, into the room. He looked at and at her, raised an eyebrow. Want him to go in? She nodded to it again. Tibbs swallowed a shudder. He took his knife out and stepped into the room. What are you doing? The fuck? I trust Ariana, answered, searching the ground for rats. He could hear the skittering of stone claws on the spider. Asked him. Hurry up, then. We only have a few seconds to reach the column. Tibbs didn't make it. The skittering became louder when he was shoulders away, and he could feel the rats coming. He could even imagine one of them breathing down the back of his neck. Don't move, Ariana ordered, and followed. Move if you wanted. A rat flew away, narrow through. Tibbs' eyes were wide, tightened his grip. It had been breathing on the back of his neck. There was an explosion somewhere. Tibbs, the fighter called back. Tibbs, look at me. He looked at her. His eyes the only part of him that seemed. He could feel them all around, waiting to pounce him. He needed to get out of here. He turned around and run out. He had almost gotten himself to the thought he'd be whiskers on each side of the tapering end. His stomach dropped. The muzzle cracked. The rat looked at him with dead gray eyes. It was no, and Tibbs could read. Tibbs, the fighter said in what he thought was too calm a voice for the. There was a rat about to eat him. Eat him. Should be panicking. You have to kill it. It's right there. Just stab it. You couldn't stab that. It would just make it angry. Then instead of killing him, it would hurt him and call its friend, and they could play with him slowly. What's happening? Ariana yelled, hint of panic in her. There's a rat in front of Tibbs, the fighter answered. Still calm. Can't see it. Me neither, the other archer said. I can blast his head out of the way, Sorceress offered. No, blasting the rogue, fighter ordered. Tibbs, you can do it. You can kill it. He gave a minute shake of the head. And the rat stilled. He was dead. He was so dead. It jumped. With a shriek, he raised his hands to protect himself. Something impacted it, then his face dropped to the floor, curled in itself, and waited for the rats to eat. And waited. Something touched him, and he shrieked again. Backing away. He hit his head, and giggling made him open his eyes and look. Ariana was covering. Are you okay? Hate rats, answered with a shudder. Then looked himself for missing part. You killed your first one, Carter indicated where knife now. His knife lay on the floor, a rat impaled on. He stared at it. It couldn't be the one that had been looking at him. Tiny. Well, be, Sorcerer said. Thief can actually kill something. Granted, I think it was a luck, but even that kind of luck isn't. A rogue. His knife and yanking it out of the rat. Safe? It dissolved in a copper piece. They stopped appearing, so and yes, that was what? 10? Well, the line including the one Tibs. So I want to see 12 coppers. I'm not going to put the team at risk because one of you thinks they can secret one of them out. Here, Tibbs. On one side was a sunburst, there a woman's face. Lighter. How itching are your fingers, Tibbs? I want to keep my hands. Don't mind if I keep them. Can't keep them. Yeah, the archer said this way we can have coins if one of us dies and we bring the equipment back. He paused. Does that seem like an encouragement to make sure we kill someone? Should we all survive the last room? They did say they don't care if we live or die, if we all die in here, Ariana said. Well, I would be surprised if that's the goal. That isn't going to happen on my watch, the fighter stated, eyes fixed on the sorcerer. Is that clear? I only suggested it once, she replied twice. That wasn't the same. I was just saying I could give you a clear shot. I don't want to hear any other suggestions like that. She counted the coins that were pocketed. Noticed some had different faces. Where the coins come from? Asked. Once they left the room, watched the archer maneuver them with ease, taking a longer way through them, but exiting at the same. Took a handful of coins out and picked one with an anchor on it. This one is from my home. We're a maritime nation. Back home, our coin almost all have a sun on them. Sorcerer said. Benalia is at a crossroads, so we have merchants from all over. I saw a lot of different. We have a shield on ours. Me too. The other archer said in surprise. Are you from Tronion? Altirial answered. Ooh, the capital. We have nobility among us. Hardly, lied with an eye roll. I'm as straight as a razor. What about you, Tibs? What's your coin? Tibs tried to envision the pieces of copper he'd seen over his life. I don't know. I never saw a full coin before I got here. And I thought I was straight, whispered. Come from somewhere, Sister said on him. Think they want coin. Shut it, Butter snapped, frowning on the woman. Or I shut it for you. Don't know what your problem is with rogue. Oh, what's your problem with rogues? I don't know what's your problem with rogues, but they are they are as vital to an adventuring group as sorcerers. Why do you think all groups of legends have 5 members? Always one of each class because we complement each other. One of us isn't plotting against the others. So, how about you keep your mouth shut from now on and express your opinion once we're out of here and we don't have to listen to them? The archer cursed and Gibbs looked at him, standing at the entrance of the room's different. And this concludes chapter 8 of Bottom Rung. If you are enjoying this, please like. If you want to know when the next one's going to be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read the story, it's up for free on Royal Road. Want to support me as well as read ahead of Royal Road. I think we're up to 9 chapters of this. It is on my Patreon. Want to listen to me do these live? It's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Twitch. The links are in the notes. That I shall wish you a good day.